Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Wednesday. It's October 23rd. It is 2024. We got a 10-game NBA slate to talk about here for Wednesday, and joined by my good buddy, Will Priester, ChiefJustice06. Chief, it's been a few weeks, my friend. How are you doing? And did you enjoy the nice little break that we had between baseball and basketball season?
Yeah, I did enjoy the break, man. I was telling you pre-show that my wife, actually, she might have been getting a little bit more antsy than me. She was asking me on Sunday, hey, do you have a podcast tonight? And I'm like, no. I was like, a few more days, So, we are back. It's NBA season. And obviously, we'll be here breaking this thing down, trying to help you guys walk through the slate. Some people probably listen to it during their morning workout on the way to work. And, I think, hopefully we kick this thing off with a really good, profitable 10-game slate on the season.
Yeah, we got a nice little two-game Tuesday slate to kind of get us going, to really start out like the grind. Karl-Anthony Towns things as chalk, and Jason Tatum. Listen, I misspoke. I guess I said that he doesn't have the highest ceiling on the slate. He's just a really good floor play. I ended up playing enough of him that I have a few good teams going. But man, never to question Jason Tatum's upside again on a 2-game slate, right? I mean, mistakes were made, but I still played it. Like I said on the podcast yesterday, I was going to play a little bit of him. I still played enough of him where I have a couple teams going, depending on how this late game goes, where I might make a little bit of money today. So hopefully everyone over there on the YouTube chat having a good little 2-game slate. And a lot to talk about, when we get into these bigger, 10-game slates. Right off the bat, Will, we have a few big question marks, which is always super fun when it comes to big slates like this. Anything that like really standing out to you that you're going to be looking for on this slate?
Well, I think the first thing was, and this news kind of broken. I think we kind of knew it, but it was still big news. Like no Joel Embiid, no Paul George to kick off the season, and so I don't think this is the easiest matchup in the world for them, with Milwaukee. But to me, that was like the big news for today. And obviously, there's some other ones, but like Paul George comes to Philly. You bring them in, and they're kicking off the season with neither one of them. It's like, man, how is that going to work in terms of getting your season off to a good start with Milwaukee coming to town? So I just thought that was really interesting news, even though we knew it was coming. Like, and Embiid's not even going to play this week, I don't think. So, what's up with that?
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get into this game. Lot to talk about. Let's just jump in. Let's get rolling here. We get started with Indiana at Detroit, 233.5 total here. Pacers a 4.5-point favorite. Jackson questionable for Indiana. Don't know how much he'll play, if he is, playing or not. I don't think he matters too much. Thompson being out obviously matters for Detroit. He was somebody that I'm very excited for this season, so hopefully he gets back. I think it was just an illness, so I don't think he'll be out too much. I think like it's return to competition. Or no, it's the blood clotting, right? That's his issue. He's having some blood clotting issues. So hopefully he can, they can figure that out. Let's start with the Pacers. What do you like here for Indiana going up against Detroit?
Well, I think the first thing is, Stevie, and I talked about this in, an article that I wrote earlier today, that I'm kind of going to lean into last season's pace usage types until we can kind of get a few weeks under our belt and kind of see if they're making any changes. I know one of the big changes to, well, I guess that's Detroit. I'll talk about that when I get to Detroit. But in terms of this game, in terms of Indiana, their pace was one of the highest to start the season last year. I'm assuming it's going to be similar. And now we're getting Pascal Siakam starting the season with this team, Stevie, rather than a trade. So I'm pretty high on Siakam early, and I'm just going to have to let him prove me wrong that his ceiling is all of a sudden just gone. But at 8,300 in this spot against Detroit, I think I'm expecting a high-paced game, not a crazy, defensive game. And I think Siakam can get out and take advantage of that here. So 8,300, I really like him. Obviously, I don't have to sell anyone on Halliburton. Like he's going to be fine. I think the big question mark for me is how are they going to handle Benedict Mathurin? How are they going to handle Nesmith this season? Last season, Nesmith and Mathurin kind of had this, or Mathurin kind of had this weird exchange where one would play 30 minutes, one would play 22 to 25 minutes. Then at one point, they were kind of flip-flop. So I think getting some exposure to them would be good as well. How are they going to handle Obi Toppin with his second season? Played consistently in the 20s as they close out the playoffs. So they're going to open it up to him as well. But just in terms of this game, I definitely think the big guns are Siakam and Halliburton. I'm okay with Miles Turner, but I think I'm more interested in Benedict Mathurin and Aaron Nesmith as kind of secondary pieces.
Yeah, so I mean, I assume Nesmith Numhard starts. I could be wrong, which makes me like Mathurin off the bench as like a high usage guy, especially in a matchup with Detroit. I think Halliburton at 100% is someone that we should be targeting here. Especially against Detroit in a game that should have, like you mentioned, good pace. Like this is a double-double spot for him. I think this is a really good assist point spot for him. I think the assists are going to go up with him being 100%, and obviously a lot of interest in Siakam for large field tournaments because I think that him just kind of disappointing people last year and the recency bias of him disappointing people is something we could potentially take advantage of on the Detroit side. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to hear me talk about Jalen Duren a lot. I'm a huge fan of his. I, right off the bat, am going to be taking shots on him here. I think that he has a massive ceiling overall. He's a guy that can go 15, 25, 5 in any game. And I think at 7,300, he's probably my favorite play from this team. I don't hate Cunningham. I'm probably not getting to a lot of Cunningham. I'm not getting to a lot of like Tobias Harris in this spot. I think it's Duren. And it's a newer look Detroit team. Thompson coming back, he'll eventually be back in this lineup and he'll be starting. It'd be interesting to see what they do with the starting lineup. If it's Hardaway or not. What are your thoughts here on Detroit?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. How are they going to handle an older and look, Tim Hardaway's not old in real life, but like in terms of NBA, he's considered a veteran player. Like, how are they going to handle him? I know for sure, just from preseason, Stevie, like Cunningham and Jaden Ivey were playing really well. And so, believe it or not, I have some interest in Cade. Like, I want to see where his ownership is. I don't think it's going to be high, so I don't think I have to get massive exposure. But I do think getting some exposure to Cade and Ivy is going to be really good in this spot. I'm with you. I'm not thrilled about Tobias Harris. I don't know how this is going to work for them. But Jalen Duren at 7,300, you talked about it. I mean, we've seen him put up monster games last season. This could easily be a 50 spot right out of the gate. So I'm with you there. I like him. I want to see how they handle this start. I think Ivy, Cunningham, Duren, they're going to start for sure. And then, like, they did start Hardaway some in the preseason. Will they just go ahead and start? They're going to start Harris. Will they start Hardaway or Fontecchio? Like, I think that's the big one. But those other four, Harris, Duren, Ivy, Cunningham, those four for sure going to start. But yeah, I just like this game, and I think Ivy at 6K, Duren at 7,300. Those are pretty good values in my book.
Yep. All right, moving on. We got Brooklyn at Atlanta. 221 total. Atlanta 7.5 point favorite on the Brooklyn side. Bogdanovich, Sharp, Watford out. Barlow out for Atlanta. We'll start with Brooklyn. I assume it's going to be Schroeder, Thompson, Johnson, DFS, Claxton. As far as the starting five here, what do we like for Brooklyn?
Look, man, Cam Johnson at 5,500. I have some interest, Stevie. I wish I knew they were going to give him 30 minutes every game. Last season he hovered in that 26, 28 minute range. If he's going to get 30 minutes, I'm very interested here. I'm okay with Claxton as long as his minutes are going to be intact. Cam Thomas, he's a guy last year that just put up monster numbers in terms of scoring. Every now and again, he'd have some of these games where he would pop with the peripherals. He's a little bit expensive for me, but I definitely think Dennis Schroeder at 6,200 is someone we can have some tremendous interest in another game, Steve, that should have a pretty nice pace to it.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that Thomas plays more minutes this year in general, like you said. We saw a big upside from him when he got the minutes. You look at the games that he was playing big minutes, he had 50-plus point upside. So, I mean, I definitely think that Thomas, I think Claxton has some upside in this spot. He's another guy when he would get minutes, he would be a really good point per minute producer. I mean, I'm not really sold on Brooklyn. They're a team that I kind of stayed away from last year. I think I'll end up starting the season with that same approach for them until we can kind of get the rotations and see what the rotations are going to be like. But Brooklyn's kind of awful as far as rotations. So they were a really tough team to figure out last year. And I'm definitely concerned about figuring them out this year. On the Atlanta side, I think that Jalen Johnson is someone that kind of broke out last year. I don't expect that to go backwards. I think Jalen Johnson's a really good basketball player. Obviously, a lot of interest in Trae Young in any matchup that we expect some pace. What do you like here for Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta mostly the same team. Now clearly, we know they sent DeJounte Murray packing, Stevie, and sent him to New Orleans.
Yeah,
they did get a few pieces back with that. Dyson Daniels being one of them. Larry Nance being another, but nothing that, in my opinion, truly moved the needle. So what it says to me, Steve, is they are kind of clearing the way here for Trae Young to get back to being a ball dominant Trae Young. That's what it said to me. And so at 9,900, I think Trae Young's got massive upside on this slate. We've got Bogdanovich, who should be playing some minutes here. I like him. You mentioned Jalen Johnson at 7,800, Stevie. Maybe it feels a little bit more expensive than we wanted to pay to start the season. But if he's going to get massive minutes, his ceiling is immense. Are they going to continue this interesting split with Okongwu and give him 20 minutes and give Capella 28, or does that come a little bit closer to center, Stevie, where they give Capella around 25 and Okongwu around 25? If so, then I definitely like Okongwu as well. But I think we're going to get back to Trae Young from 2 or 3 years ago, ball dominant, putting points in the bucket, heavy assists. That's what I think we're going to get from Trae Young, and I really like him at 9,900 for tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, so much to kind of digest here. Rissiker, do we think right out of the bat, Rissiker is in the starting lineup? What do we think when it comes to him? Do we think that he starts? I mean, I wouldn't be shocked necessarily if they started him over a Hunter. I like him, I think, regardless, but I think I like him more if he is off the bench. I think that people might play more Hunter Daniels if Richard comes off the bench. So what are your thoughts? Rissiker, I said Richard, but Rissiker.
I think it's Risa Shea, actually.
Risa Shea? Okay. Well,
yeah, Risa Shea. I think it's Risa Shea. Yeah. So he's a number one pick, right? And
I mean, you got to use it, right?
Yeah, I personally think you don't draft him that high to bring him off the bench. Most number one picks start. Now, the difference is Atlanta already has pieces. Even if he doesn't start, though, Stevie, I think he sees enough minutes. That's my read here. I would assume, though, that they want him to start. So if you got him and Trae, Jalen Johnson and Capella will probably start. And then now you're just deciding, do you start Hunter or Bogdanovich, like that's what I see. I could be wrong. Either way, though, I'm not afraid to pull the trigger in this spot. I still think he gets enough minutes to be productive.
Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of looking through their usage for the preseason. And I mean, obviously, preseason NBA, not something that we're going to weigh too heavily in general. But I mean, Trae Young definitely going to be the ball handle and be the big guy. Johnson is going to take a huge step forward with Murray gone. And it's just kind of maybe trying to figure out who those other pieces are going to be. And we might have to just kind of feel it out and look at projections and stuff throughout the day and see where people are on or off. It's a 10-game slate. I think projected ownership going to be pretty spread out on this slate. Cleveland at Toronto, 224.5 total in this one. Cleveland a 6.5-point favorite. Strus out for Cleveland, and on the Toronto side, Barrett, Olynyk, and Brown out. Let's start with Cleveland. What do we like here for the Cavs?
So definitely like Donovan Mitchell, and last year Cleveland was a team, Stevie, that did not higher paces, but Donovan Mitchell still found ways to be productive with his scoring. At 8,700, this is a guy that can put up 50 in a hurry in terms of fantasy points, so I really like him. I'm a little high on Darius Garland to kick off this season, Stevie, in terms of his production at 7,300. I think this is a guy that could, easily get you high 30s to mid 40s on this slate. Toronto, with their lineup as they traded away. Oh my goodness, Siakam. They traded away Siakam, and brought in some other guys, and we saw this team get younger in a few spots. So I like Cleveland here. I think this is a spot where they could definitely put up some points, even though they play at one of the slower paces. You got Jared Allen at 7,800. You got Mobley at 77, and then with Stress out, I think that opens up the door for Karis LeVert to play 30 to 32 minutes here, Stevie. And that's a guy that typically is pretty productive when given the opportunity. So I love these guards. This trio of guards is what I really love from this game. But secondarily, I'm okay with Mobley. I'm okay with Allen if you decide to do that.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't my favorite spot. Cleveland was not a team that I played a lot of last year in general. They're a good basketball team. They play really good defense, and they play a lot of lopsided games, I feel like, where you still get the minutes out of these guys, but it's just spread out production. Am I going to get to Mitchell today? Probably not a lot, if any. Am I going to get to Allen today? I want to kind of see what Allen Mobley is going to look like. We didn't see a ton of them on the court together last year. I mean, LeVert should play a little bit more here, but he's 6,200. So I'm just not seeing a ton of value with these Cleveland prices. I feel like they are priced very appropriately. It was just like Cleveland and Miami last year. They are really good basketball teams, but DFS wise, it's just, you don't get a ton of standouts in general. So
it's funny you mentioned that, Stevie, because I feel like I played very little Miami guys last year, especially guys like Bam, who unless they had a lot of guys sitting, Bam would be 8,500. I still didn't play him last season, so I'm with you 100%. I totally get that analogy.
The Toronto side, Scotty Barnes. I know it's a really tough matchup. Large field tournaments, this dude has a massive ceiling. No RJ Barrett, no Brown. It's going to be Barnes quickly, with a majority of the usage on this team. And I just personally think that Barnes has the highest ceiling on this team. And I think that he's the guy you really want to target in this spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I like him. Definitely quickly as well. I think those are the two big spins. I'm slightly interested in Chris Boucher and Boucher today, slightly at 4K, Stevie, where I think we feel like they're going to be missing a couple of their big guys. We know Lennox not playing, and clearly Barrett is out, but I think this is a guy that could kind of go in this hybrid role, like a 4-5 rather than, and so I might sprinkle some Chris Boucher in at 4K for tournaments. I'm contemplating doing that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I don't necessarily hate that. I could see like a guy like Grady Dick getting hot and like having a really decent game. I could see Jakob Poeltl playing really good minutes in this one, but I think the Boucher call, like the more I think about it, the more I love this call, because think about it, like it's not like Cleveland plays small. They use a lot of Mobley, they use a lot of Allen together, so I could see Boucher, getting 25 plus minutes in this game, and he's a good like fantasy point per minute producer. So kind of like that call. I didn't really have him on my radar when we came on, and I like that call. I think that's a really solid call. Orlando at Miami, 208 total. Miami a 2.5 point favorite. Magic good to go as far as the injury report. Richardson out for Miami. We'll go to my Orlando Magic first here. We're kind of deep. I'm not going to lie. We seem very deep. I'm really interested to kind of see how they manage Jonathan Isaac to try to keep him healthy. One of the better defenders in the NBA. Paulo, we saw him take the huge steps last year. Suggs signed a big contract. He's very versatile.
Wendell Carter Jr. signed one too.
Yeah, Wendell Carter Jr. Like the Magic should be a really solid team. And I have this projected as the slowest paced game on the slate. Is there anything you like here for the Orlando Magic?
Oh, man. And Stevie, this was the conundrum for me because while Suggs, Anthony, KCP, if you will, which
KCP, yeah. Added another guard.
Yeah, it's like, what? How are we going to play all these cheap guards? You can't, I don't think. I do think Wagner is always, if he stays at this price, Stevie, he's kind of going to be the X factor that can get you 40 out of nowhere. But man, this game, Stevie, we talked about Cleveland, Toronto. This Orlando Miami game sets us back to the 1980s. I'm exaggerating slightly, but I don't think this is the spot for either of these teams for us to be doing massive targets. Now, Wendell Carter Jr. at 5,400, if his minutes are going to be in the 30s, like I'm okay with that. I think that's very fair. But overall, this game just screams low scoring, slow pace.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way, right? You worry
if
about
everything holds
pace.
true to last year. Once again, I know we're using last year's.
Yeah, but both of these teams are very similar. Like Miami looks very similar to last year as far as the roster. Yeah. Orlando is the exact same. Added, KCP. So I mean, is it really going to be much different for Orlando? I mean, I feel like Gary Harris is going to kind of be rotationed out with KCP.
I was shocked Gary Harris was still on this roster, to be honest with you.
I don't think it will be something that lasts very long. I mean, maybe he's that like leader in the locker room. I almost said clubhouse, but locker room.
Big money. Like if he wants to play, I think they're more than willing to keep him on the roster for, not pennies on the dollar, but they're not giving him Steph Curry money. He's getting role player money.
Yeah. Fultz is gone. Like that's one of the pieces that's gone for Orlando, but I mean, I don't necessarily think that's a huge deal. Cole Anthony should have the ball a lot with the second unit, but I'm just out on this Orlando team here, and I don't have a ton of interest in the Miami side either.
Yep, and really, don't these two teams almost look identical? Like
very slow pace, play good defense, and play old school basketball. I mean, that's what both of these teams are going to do, and it's just the markets.
Yeah, absolutely. But I will say on a side note, Steve, before we move on, Jimmy Butler starting the season healthy. Let's hope it can stay that way. When he's healthy, he is a fun player to watch. So, man, starting the season healthy this year. Hopefully, no knee or ankle issues early. And this team should stay competitive. But, yeah, I'm not really thrilled about this game in general. I do think Jaime Jaquez we're going to have some opportunities later in the season with him or in some other games.
It's if Jovic starts at 4,100, I don't necessarily hate him here as a value play because, I mean, slower paced games, teams that, like, grinding in the paint, there's always that opportunity for a guy like Jovic to go out and get 8 to 10 rebounds, and if he can get a few putback shots kind of stuff. So slower pace games, I mean, these cheaper forwards that can crash the boards and stuff. I don't necessarily hate those guys. So, I mean, I think he's okay at 41. We haven't had a ton of value. It's the first look. Obviously, we talk about this all the time. We are a first look podcast, but we'll see. We'll see how the day kind of goes. Milwaukee at Philadelphia, 224 total. Milwaukee a 3.5-point favorite. Middleton out. Giannis probable. Embiid and George out for Philly. We'll start with the Milwaukee side. Obviously, basketball game-wise, you would expect this game to be a fantastic basketball game. But, yeah, I mean, I'm struggling with this game because it seems a little lopsided to me. Like, I get that Maxi's still here and they have a couple pieces, but Milwaukee's clearly the better team in this matchup, in my opinion. What do we like here for Milwaukee at these prices?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if I like any of them at these prices because mentally for me, Stevie, this does feel like a early blowout game, right? Like I don't think Philly's able to completely match what we're going to see, especially even though Chris Middleton is out. Milwaukee signed Gary Trent, so it's while I'm not saying Gary Trent is Chris Middleton, I'm saying from a talent perspective and a scoring perspective, Gary Trent can get them 15 to 20 points in this game if he's on.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you know it's like,
is it a huge difference? Like, okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit because Chris Middleton's a really good basketball player, but Gary Trent is a shooter, man. Like, now they have this like role filled that like they're not missing Middleton as much as they were last year, the year before, because they have another potential scorer.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I am. And so I just think Philly's gonna get blown out here. Just based on the roster. So
I thought the line was really interesting as well. I thought the line was very interesting in this game. Let's go to the Philadelphia side of this game. Drummond 7K. They didn't misprice him. We were kind of hoping that we could get some value with Drummond here. They didn't misprice him at all. Still might pay off this price tag if he gets the minutes. Maxi's going to have a huge usage rate in this game. No Paul George, no Joel Embiid. Maxi's going to have a lot of usage. He was very hit or miss last year when these guys were off the floor. He had some big games, had some consistent games. What are you doing here with Philadelphia?
Well, I mean, Maxi at 9K, he's going to soak up a ton of usage. And so I'm okay with playing him. I'm actually okay with Drummond as well at 7K, but only in tournaments. I think the sneaky play here, which may not be so sneaky, is probably Kelly Oubre at 6,400 because he should play massive minutes also, Stevie, with no Paul George there. I'm expecting him to play 30-plus minutes easily. They did sign Eric Gordon as well, and so how they're going to handle Gordon, I don't feel like Gordon gets to 35 minutes. I think 25 minutes feels like more his speed in terms of where he is in his career. So I like him. Like they're probably going to play Caleb Martin a little bit, Stevie. I would assume. So I think he's fine. Like I definitely think they play Caleb before they play KJ Martin, and so I'm interested to see how they're going to craft this lineup. And then of course you got Kyle Lowry also. Coming off the bench. Now, Lowry hasn't really been productive over the past, couple seasons, 2 seasons to be exact. But I still think, depending on how they craft this starting lineup is really going to influence a lot of our lineup decisions.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you got to wait for lineups to come out and see what this lineup looks like. I feel like they're missing 2 of the bigger pieces here with George and Embiid out. Like, that's going to matter a lot. I do think Caleb Martin was a really good pickup for Philadelphia. We saw Caleb Martin have some really good games with Miami last year. I think that he's someone that could be a big difference maker here in general. So he's someone to watch and see how the rotations kind of shape up. Because, I mean, we could look at last year's stats all day long and see where everybody was at. But at the end of the day, a lot of changes to a lot of teams, a lot of coaching changes, a lot of changes in general. So we're going to have to really pay attention to basketball for the first week and a half, 2 weeks to kind of see how these rotations are going to shape up. Charlotte, your Hornets at Houston taking on the Rockets. This game has a 229.5 total. Houston a 7-point favorite. Green questionable, Williams out, Adams questionable. Steven Adams missed all of last season. It'd be interesting to see if he gets back and starts playing on a regular basis. Starting here with the Charlotte side, I mean, it's 100% LaMelo Ball. So who do I have interest in? I have interest in LaMelo Ball being healthy. We don't know how long it's going to last, and we don't know what to expect from him for the whole year. But when he's out there, he has a huge ceiling. What do you like here for your Hornets?
First muted of the NBA season by accident, but definitely fine with LaMelo. I'm interested to see how they use Grant Williams this year, Stevie. Last year down the stretch, Grant played a fair amount of minutes, so I'm very interested to see how they handle him. I definitely like Miles Bridges here at 7,400. He's a guy that's been incredibly productive as well. And then Stevie, Nick Richards, like he's 4K. We know that this team's going to play Alperen Sengun. I think Nick Richards gets enough minutes to be incredibly valuable today, Stevie. At 4K, I think I will have some exposure to Nick Richards here. Like I think he's a sneaky play that could get you 30 out of nowhere on the low.
All right, fair enough. Houston side, fun team. I feel like this is going to be one of those teams we talk about a lot this year as far as just fun to watch play basketball. What do we like here on the DFS side here for Houston?
Well, what I don't like is Jalen Green coming out of the gate at 7,900. Woo! That probably shocked me, Stevie. I did not expect that one this season. But folks, this is we've run this tape for 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons, 7 seasons, Stevie. Just play Alperen Sengun today, and hopefully we're still right about this. The Hornets just get destroyed inside, and it's just
they're the same. They have the same guys in there. Like we're just gonna don't overthink this. Yeah, don't overthink this at all.
Yeah,
it wasn't out earlier. It wasn't out earlier, but I'm waiting to see Sengun's rebounding prop because
I hope it's like 9.5. Please.
I'm already very interested in it, so everyone knows. It is up now. Let's see what it is. It's 9.5. All right, let me pull up my app really quick.
This is amazing.
Wouldn't be the morning grind if we weren't betting rebounding props against Charlotte. Let's call it that. 9.5 minus incredible. 130. Yeah. Go ahead and put that. All right. Well, live bet already in. Live show during the live show, getting some bets in. I mean, Sengun's my favorite play from Houston. Bigs against Charlotte.
No doubt.
I also want to say that like Jabari Smith Jr. could have a monster game here too. Like depending on like the minutes and how it works out, like he could have a big game. And Bronny is in the NBA in a game on the floor with his dad on the floor too. Hate him or love him, this is awesome. I mean, hate it or love it, this is awesome.
Listen, that Stevie, and that's all I was ever saying.
We are dads, so like it's even cooler for us. Like I can't imagine like getting that moment with my kids. Like
that's all I was.
I got a moment with my son, like doing baseball. He plays t-ball, and we were on a field that I grew up playing and spent a lot of blood and sweat on as when I was a kid. And I had a moment where I was just like being on the field, standing next to him on that field. Like I had a moment with him, and I was just like, I can't imagine what LeBron is feeling right now. Like I feel like nothing more. LeBron wants to get his son his first basket and get the assist. Like how cool would that be? So yeah, I mean they're playing the pick and roll game right now, but anyway, sorry. We get sidetracked here every once in a while, and I feel like this is a moment to get sidetracked. It's really cool. Hate it or love it. whether you think he's good at basketball or not. If you don't think he's good at basketball, you're probably a little crazy. This is a kid that almost died last year. So go look at some of his tape from, him growing up and over the last 5 years. Like, Bronny James can play basketball. Don't worry about that. Anything else here from Houston that you wanted to bring up?
I was going to say, I feel like Fred VanVleet's in this interesting spot in terms of price. Like, he's a guy that could get you mid-40s also. At 7,400, I'm perfectly fine with plugging him in.
All right, moving on. We got Chicago at New Orleans, 225 total. New Orleans a 6.5-point favorite. Chicago, everyone's good to go.
New look Chicago team too.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second. I want to say, New Orleans' biggest headache coming into the slate is New Orleans. Zion's questionable. Murray's questionable. Murphy's out. And Alvarado is questionable.
Man, I thought they said Zion was... Maybe I misread. I thought they said he was good to go.
Everything.
He was sick. He was sick. Okay.
Yeah, he's going to be a game time decision. He missed practice on Tuesday, and he's dealing with an illness. But health wise, he should be pretty good. And DeJounte Murray is expected to get back to the team and play. It was a personal thing, so. We'll see how it all kind of works out. It's not an injury for either one of them. It's an illness and personal. So they both could play. So we'll see. But let's start with that new look Bulls, like you were saying. A very new look Chicago team. I assume that it'd be Giddey, White, Levine, Williams, Vooch as the starting lineup here. I wouldn't be shocked. If Lonzo only plays around 15 minutes, so kind of think about that. They're going to limit him here definitely. What do we like here for Chicago?
I'm going to tell you my favorite player on this team right now, and I think Stevie, I could be wrong. I think we're going to get vintage Zach LaVine. I think we're going to get 28-point Zach LaVine. When I say most of this season. Maybe that's a stretch, but I'm saying I think his average is going to come up a point or two with no DeRozan. I know they've got Giddey in there, but Giddey's not DeMar DeRozan. Giddey's going to help them facilitate, help move the ball around. Giddey's not a guy that's going to be taking 20-plus shots a game. I think Zach LaVine is the primary scoring option on this team for sure. So, Stevie, at 7,300, when Zach LaVine was really cooking 3 years ago, prior to DeMar DeRozan, even with him, at these price levels, prior to his injuries past couple of seasons, we'd be running to play him at this price because he was, scoring 28, 29 points, picking up a few peripherals, giving us 40-plus fantasy points a game. So I want to talk about him because I do really like him. So he's my favorite target. I'm not thrilled about everybody else. Vooch is 8,300. I think that price is fine. I'm just okay with it. But if there's one person I'm going to play for tomorrow for the Bulls, it's Zach LaVine, hands down.
Love the LaVine call. I think Giddey's too expensive on DraftKings. I don't have FanDuel pricing up in front of me. I don't expect Giddey to be a $7,100 player. I kind of expect him to be the passing option, not the scoring option here for this team. And he's a good rebounder when he was rebounding, but I don't even know we expect that. I feel like the production's going to come from Vooch, White, and Levine. Williams sits in a corner and plays defense on defense, but he's not a scorer. So, it's those three guys. Those are the three guys you want to target. It's just a new look big three for Chicago, and it's Kobe White instead of DeMar DeRozan for me. It's not Josh Giddey instead of DeMar DeRozan for me. So, yeah. Dave in chat said Giddey's 6.3 on FanDuel. That's a little bit more doable, in my opinion. Is he only...
Yeah, especially with the 3 points for the blocks and steals on FanDuel.
Yep. Is he only point guard on FanDuel too, or is he small forward on FanDuel? That's a question that I think... anyway, we'll let chat answer that for us because I don't have it up in front of me. Shame on me for not having FanDuel up in front of me. That's my bad. Can't win them all. Let's talk New Orleans. Let's go with the thought process of Murray and Williams and Williamson plays, like Zion and Murray play. Let's think that first, because I think that's the most likely outcome is both of those guys end up playing. What do we like here for New Orleans?
If they both play Stevie, I don't know if I play anyone. Like, to me, this is now. Hear me out. So if all of these guys, because see, here's the other thing, Stevie. We're talking about Zion, we're talking about Brandon Ingram, and we're talking about DeJounte Murray. But let's not forget, CJ McCollum is still on this team too. Like, how in the world are they going to share this basketball enough for any of them to be productive unless they just play hot potato and say, hey, you take it, you take it, you take it. It feels like the Suns all over again. It feels like Brooklyn all over again. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Suns with KD, Beal, and Booker, who's going to have it tonight? Brooklyn, when it was KD, Harden, and Kyrie, who's going to have it? I don't know. So it just feels like a log jam with the scoring. Like the price, obviously, on Ingram at 7,400, I think that price is nice. But Stevie, how am I going to play any of these guys? It feels like they're all going to cancel each other out in terms of production.
I have a lot of interest in Ingram. I feel like this is a good wing spot. He's someone that I don't necessarily hate here. But I will say, like, Patrick Williams is a good defender. So if you're kind of expecting, like, Williams to be on Ingram, that's not the best matchup in the world. But if it's Zach LaVine on Ingram and Williams ends up on Zion, Ingram might just, I wouldn't necessarily say destroy Zach LaVine, but Zach LaVine's not the best defender in the world. So I think Ingram is really interesting at 7,400, depending on who's in and who's out. I think if everybody plays, you could still play Ingram, but I think if Zion plays, that's who you're really kind of wanting to play. And I know that sounds weird, but if Zion plays, I feel like Williams is going to have to cover Zion, and that is going to open up Ingram to LaVine, and that's kind of what you want. You want the matchup where Zach LaVine is guarding Brandon Ingram. That's where I think that's where the plus matchup is, right? Like that's a plus matchup for Ingram. So Memphis at Utah. 227.5 total in this game. Memphis a 3-point favorite. Triple J out, Kennard out, Spencer out, Williams out. Utah good to go. The biggest thing here is Triple J being out. Like, he's a guy that's a huge impact. I mean, I assume Zach Edey is going to start for Memphis, right? Like, I mean that's my assumption. Not cheap necessarily, but I don't necessarily hate Zach Edey at 6,200 here going up against Utah. Like, it's kind of like John Collins marketing is their bigs, Kessler. Like, so I think Edey could have a really decent game here, but I feel like Ja has something to prove. Bane has something to prove, but they're so expensive. Who do we think Sexton guards? I think is the biggest question here.
I don't know. I would assume Sexton. Are they still going to bring him off the bench? Like,
oh no, I assume that Keontae and Sexton are your starting guards for Utah. That would be my guess.
Okay. Well, I mean, they're probably going to switch. I assume he ends up on Bane and Keontae is probably on Ja. But
that's what my initial thought was too.
Yeah. I'm still in the Ja though, man. Like, if I'm going to play, hear me out, Steve. If I'm going to play Trae Young at 9,900, I'm certainly going to play Ja at 95. Like, I feel like they're comparable in terms of production levels. So Ja for me at 95 is like my favorite play from this team.
I mean, you remember it last year. You know, we talked about the bigs against Charlotte. Point guards against Utah was a thing last year. So, I think Ja is a fantastic play. I prefer Ja over Bane because I still think Sexton is a good defender, and I assume that Sexton would be on Bane. But I don't know if I'd play them together. I mean, it'd be an either-or situation for me. I like Edey. I mean, I keep coming back to him, but I really do like him. Is there anybody else from Memphis you want to mention here?
Negative.
Utah side, I like the price tag on Keontae George. He should start. He should play 30-plus minutes. He's a guy that could go like 35-plus. So I don't necessarily hate the price tag as like a mid-range like guard. I I was struggling when I was looking at this team pre-show. I just don't know where a lot of the production is going to come from for Utah. They're a team that I'll be watching a lot the first few weeks of the season to see where we're getting a lot of the usage and production from.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. I think this price on marketing is just too good. 7,500. Like last year, Stevie, he didn't
fill up
play
the stat sheet. Yeah.
Yeah, like at 75, I really like that because he's coming into this season healthy now. So this is not like a situation where he's got to be on ramp up. He's coming out of the gate ready to play, and so I think this is a really good price for him. This is a guy that when he's been really productive, Steve, he's been anywhere from 82 to 8,500. I feel like this is a little bit of a discount. So he's my favorite play from Utah for sure. Like Keontae George, no doubt. I'm actually okay with John Collins even at 6,100. Like he was a lot more productive here than he was in Atlanta because he had more consistent minutes. So I'm fine with John Collins also. I think it's a fair price for him.
Remember, Jordan Clarkson had a ton of usage last year. He didn't necessarily do a lot with it, but the $5,600 price tag on Jordan Clarkson is really interesting because when he is on the floor, he's going to have a lot of usage. I don't expect him to start, and I could be wrong. I would assume that it's going to be Keontae, Sexton, Markkanen, Hendricks, Collins. We'll see what it kind of shapes up to, but Jordan Clarkson off the bench, playing 24 to 28 minutes might be a huge difference maker. So if you're playing 150, I'd get some exposure to him. Phoenix at LA taking on the Clippers. We mentioned new look teams. Clippers look a lot different. 224 total in this one. Phoenix, a 4.5 point favorite. Okaji out. And then on the Clippers side, Kawhi, Tucker, and Mamba out. Let's start with Phoenix. What do we like here for the Suns?
So I literally just got done talking about this team, Stevie, and I mean Bradley Beal at 6,700. I think I'm willing to roll the dice there. That's so cheap, Stevie, for a guy that if he's healthy, I don't think he's dead just yet. I mean, if he scores 20 to 25 real points, he's already getting close to hitting some nice production here. Get us a couple more peripheral stats, and I think we are good. KD's 8,600. I'm a little bit afraid Phoenix could run away with this thing, but last year we saw that they weren't a really good defensive team. So I'm not quite sure they're actually going to pull away from the Clippers, who have Coach Tyronn Lue that's actually going to coach this team up, despite the fact that they have a couple guys out. So I like Beal the most, I think, for the price. Next would definitely be Durant, then Booker. After that, Stevie, it's kind of a toss-up. I don't think Tyus Jones is going to have the same upside that he did, although kudos to Phoenix for going out and getting a true point guard to help free up this big three. So Tyus Jones might be a good candidate for assists this year, Stevie. Maybe that's something I look at. I would assume he comes in somewhere between 4.5 and 5.5 to kick off the season. Maybe I'm wrong, but that feels right. And if so, maybe I take a stab at that in the pick'em streets. But
it's not that low, I promise you.
Is it 7.5?
So it's 6.5 on some books at -150 and 7.5 at +110.
Hey, that's fair. Yeah. He's got a lot of assist potential right now. But still, Beal, Durant, Booker, that would be my order, followed by Jusuf Nurkic in a distant 4 for me.
All right, going to the Clippers side, my favorite play on the entire slate, James Harden. First guy in for me. I think he's the best play on the slate today. I mean, I don't really have to get into it too much. His usage should be incredible. Paul George is gone. Kawhi is out. He's going to be on the floor with like Trey Mann and Norman Powell and Kevin Porter Jr. and Derek Jones Jr. James Harden should have a huge usage rate in this game, and I mean he's 9,200. I think I'd pay 10.5 for him today. He's by far my favorite play on the slate today.
Yeah, and this actually looks like his team from Houston, Steve. You remember he was in Houston? It was basically him, a gang of misfits in the between him and the center. Him and the center. Remember, he had Clint Capella. It was him and Capella, and then a random collection of other guards. And this feels just like Houston right now. And Steve, we talked about this new look Clippers team, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. Kawhi Leonard, once again, not playing basketball, probably needs to go ahead and hit the retire button. But as someone in the prop shop says, why retire when you can just get paid to have a front row ticket to your team playing games every night? You just sit there. I totally get it. But I totally like James Harden here at 9,200. Should be a spot as long as Phoenix doesn't pull away. He should roll here. I think Kevin Porter Jr., if they're going to give him the minutes, Stevie, at 4,800, I mean, this is a guy that we've seen be incredibly productive when given the opportunity. If he's going to get big minutes, I'm fine with him. And then Zubac, I mean, as of right now, isn't he the second or third option in this offense, Stevie? At 6,600, I think he's in consideration. No Mo Bamba, either no PJ Tucker, who is probably going to be a stretch 4 or 5 on the small ball lineup. Zubac is going to have to produce for this team early. And with Nurkic on the other side, he should see at least 30 minutes. So I'm perfectly fine with playing him.
If KPJ comes off the bench, I have a ton of interest in him. Because people are going to get off of him. And I don't know how much people know about KPJ after everything that he's kind of gone through the last few years, but he's not afraid to shoot the basketball.
Never.
So I like KPJ for tournaments. It's Harden and Zubac and KPJ for me. Those are the guys that I want to play. Zubac could crush here, and we are just not on it as much as we should be. He probably ends up with 28 to 34 minutes in this game with guys like Derek Jones Jr. and Nicholas Batum behind him.
Yeah.
It just kind of does his thing. The backup center is Bamba. Bamba's out. I think this is just a spot where Zubac flies under the radar because he's Zubac, and he just kind of does his thing. So I don't hate him, but James Harden, by far my favorite play on the slate. Golden State at Portland, 222 total. Golden State is 6-point favorite. Sharp, Thibault, and Williams out. We'll start with the Warriors. No Splash Brothers, or a new look Splash Brothers with Buddy Hield. It's weird where Clay and Steph are not playing together anymore, but it is a thing, and it is what we have to deal with. What do you like here for Golden State?
So, Steve, we keep talking about these new looks, and look, man, Curry, and which Podziemski was there last year. Clearly, Kuminga was there, but Steve Kerr is really experimenting with lineups, and so I think one of the last lineups I saw in the preseason that I caught, Steve, it was Curry, Podziemski, Draymond Green, Kuminga, and Looney. That was the starting lineup. And that's a very interesting lineup, especially when you got Buddy Hield here. But I think Curry at 8,500 against Portland, Stevie, this is it just feels cheap. For him to be facing a team that's not going to give him a whole lot of defensive resistance. I like Podziemski at 5K, who should be getting a start. A lot of people may not have known slow-mo Kyle Anderson has come to the Warriors. I actually think that's a sneaky pickup for them, Stevie. He could be really good in this offense, a guy that likes to play with nice pace and be able to help open up the floor a little bit for some of these guys. So I like him also. TJD, is he a guy that they're going to give real minutes to this season? If he gets anywhere near 25 minutes against Portland, I am very interested. But top of mind for me, man, Curry, 8,500. That feels really cheap on this slate, Steve. I like him a ton.
Yeah, Jackson Davis should be starting over Looney. It shouldn't even be a question at this point. Drives me crazy. Kerr is an incredible coach, so I can't really question what he does. But we watched Jackson Davis, and he can do his thing. My favorite play from the Warriors is Podsy. I love this guy today. He's one of my favorite value plays on the slate. I think that he crushes this year with this new look Warriors team. I think that he's a guy that can score. He can get assists. He can get rebounds. He can get steals. He is someone that is going to take a step forward this year. Don't sleep on Draymond. Draymond double-double, triple-doubles are a thing. He can get 10 assists, 10 rebounds, and 11 points and get that poor man's triple double. So don't sleep on Draymond. I'm probably not playing a ton of Steph, and that's probably a mistake because he's so cheap. But my biggest issue with Steph is like he's a shooter and his assist numbers are kind of all over the place. He's not going to go out there and get a ton of rebounds. The Steph Curry like ceiling days are the days that like he goes out and scores like 50 actual points. And those days happen. And he's the best shooter that we've ever seen in the NBA. I'll argue that with anybody. I don't even think it's an argument anymore. You have to unmute your mic, Will. Gosh, 2-in-1 pod. You must have had a break.
I had a break. I was just saying, tell them if they don't believe you, just pull up the Olympics and watch how he closed out those last 2 games.
Oh my God, wasn't that incredible?
Oh, that'll tell you all you need to know about Steph Curry.
Gosh, like I love the Olympics. I've talked about this before. I love the Olympics. I love watching it. How cool would it have been to be there watching Steph cook like that and just
I mean,
he cooked. He cooked like
man.
That was some of the biggest performances ever. It was just wild. But let's go to the Portland side of this game. I think low-key one of the best pickups of the year is Danny Avia going to Portland. This dude really kind of broke out last year, and I think this is a huge pickup for Portland. This guy has an incredible ceiling. He's a really good basketball player. This is a newer look Portland, like young Portland team that, I mean, they could do some stuff here. Like if Scoot plays a good point guard and Simons is kind of able to be off the ball more, like watch out for Portland as like a low key, no one's talking about team that starts the season really strong.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I do like. It's interesting how fast life comes at you, Stevie, and it feels like Damian Lillard has been gone forever. This is literally his second season gone.
Yeah.
But you look at this team now, and I think the front office has done a good job of trying to put together a quality lineup, probably with the whatever salary restrictions they have. So I know they did pick up Scoot's like 3rd-year option or whatever. But so think about that, Steve. They got Scoot. You talk about they got Simons, Avi at the 3, Jeremy Grant at the 4, Ayton at the 5. Like that's a quality NBA lineup to try it out against anybody. This team feels like OKC a little bit to me, right? Like made a couple sneaky trades, got some young pieces, put them together that kind of fit together, and then all of a sudden, if the coaching is right, this team can take off. Now, I'm not saying they're NBA Finals bound, but in the terms of a play-in, Steve, I feel like this is a play-in team. Could be an 8 or 9 seed, straggle 8 or 9 with upside for 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're shooting for. Let's get back into contention. Then let's see if we can make a push to get in the middle of the pack there. In terms of DFS, I'm with you. I like Avdia. Scoot at 5,800 though feels very cheap, and then Ayton at 7,400. I like him also. We saw him put up some big games last year as well.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what this Portland team just kind of looks like overall. But yeah, I mean, Scoot, you'll hear me talk about him again here in a few minutes for the morning grind game. I have him written down for a question that I really, really like. So talk about him in just a minute. Let's play the morning grind game. A lot of games, 10 games, fun slate. We're right back at it, right? We're right back in the NBA and swinging the NBA. We'll see how these new coaches and new lineups look like with rotations. Some older players that we're so familiar with, kind of losing some minutes to some of these younger guys that have some upside. So favorite play under 5K to go 7X. Who do you like here?
I'm staying at home, Stevie. I talked about it earlier. While I do think Alperen Sengun is going to eat us up inside, that won't be without Nick Richards also being productive at 4K. I really like him a lot today.
All right. I'm going to go to Kevin Porter Jr. We talked about it. There's a lot of usage to go around here. No Paul George, no Kawhi. James Harden's going to do his thing. KPJ is a talent, and he's a guy that's big. I mean, Yeezy and Chad, he's an incredible talent, Porter Jr. Yes, I agree 100%. 4,800 is just a really cheap price tag. Huge risk because we have no idea what to expect minutes-wise. But how do they not play him? I mean, with all these guys out, this new team, Mamba, Kawhi, and Tucker out, like KPJ, let him eat. Let him eat.
Yeah.
Over 8K to go under 5X. Who's your bust today?
Stevie, so what's interesting is I don't think we have like a whole lot of guys in that range that I'm kind of thrilled about playing anyway. So give me DeJounte Murray if he plays, and then as a backup, Stevie, give me Bam Adebayo.
All right. I mean, I'm gonna go to Cade Cunningham. I know that Cade Cunningham has a huge ceiling. I'm really like Duren. I don't think this is the best matchup for Detroit in general, but I'm struggling to get a lot of Cunningham. So give me Cade Cunningham as my bust today. Favorite 6X play? Who do you got?
Ooh, that was an interesting sound. I haven't heard that on my computer before. So this is a guy I mentioned as we were talking, Stevie, about how I think his season is going to go this year. Obviously, we talked about this game in general and how much I like this game. Talked about the fact that I think he's with this team over the going through the workouts, going through preseason, and that's Pascal Siakam at 8,300. I think he takes off like a rocket ship against Detroit.
I know it's not really shocking because you all listen to the podcast, but James Harden. Absolutely love this spot for Harden. I think that, like I said, I'd pay 10-5 for him today in this spot. Favorite GPP ceiling play? New question. This is one that I kind of put in. It could be any price tag. It's just who do you think has the largest ceiling on the slate?
Given the entire situation, hear me out here, Stevie. I legitimately think it's Tyrese Maxey with all these guys out.
It could be. Like, if that game stays close, he's probably
Oh man. I don't like the spot. But his ceiling is through the roof right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of the question, right? The point of the question is we still have our let's get weird GPP play where we're trying to find under 10% that's going to go big. But like the whole point of this question is like, who is that guy? Like in the NBA, at the end of the day, you're trying to figure out like what game stays close, what game stays super competitive. If Philly keeps the game close against Milwaukee, Maxey's going to have a big game is what you're thinking.
He's got it. Yeah. If it's close, it's because of him. And that probably means he's like he's pushing 60 to 70 fantasy points. Like in my mind. You get what I'm saying? Like he's probably scoring 35, 7, 8 assists, 5, 6 rebounds, 2 or 3 steals, a block like that. That's how they stay close in this game, I think. Yep.
I am going to go to your Hornets, and I'm going to go to LaMelo Ball. We've seen this guy have incredible games. We've seen him go over 70 fantasy points. I think we're overlooking how good of a matchup Charlotte-Houston is. This game has a ton of run up and down potential. LaMelo, when healthy, is a guy that's very capable of monster games. We've seen him, like I said, over 70. We've seen him over 65 many times. I'm going LaMelo Ball. 1, I love his price tag, first of all. 2, I like the fact that he's healthy coming into the season. And 3, he's 23 years old. Like, I know he's had some injuries, but it's not like this dude's 30 and he's struggling. He's young. He's very talented. I like LaMelo a lot here, and he is my ceiling play of the day. Let's get weird GPP play of the day. Who do you got that you think is going to be low owned that could be a difference maker today?
I hope he's low owned, Stevie. I'm not sure how the projections are going to spit out the numbers here because I know that will influence ownership. But I talked about it. DeMar DeRozan is out of here. I think Zach LaVine leads the charge in terms of his
hope
offense.
You're right. I really hope he's low owned. I'm with you on him. Yep.
Yeah, 7,300. I just, man, feels way too low for him. I mean, he could be a GPP winner. So I like him a ton today.
All right, fair enough. Mine is Danny Advia. We talked about him. I don't expect him to get a ton of ownership here at 6,900. I think Portland is an incredible fit for him. I think that he's going to have a huge season. He's somebody that I target a lot in season long this year, and I could, like I said, I could be wrong, but absolutely love him here at 6,900. And I don't expect him to get a ton of ownership. So hopefully I'm right on that aspect. All right. Yeah. Let's go to the betting portion of the show. Do you have an over-under money line or against the spread bet that you like?
Let me check, Stevie. Let me check. And I knew you were going to ask me this, and I didn't have it ready. So everybody that's listening, I'm super sorry about that. I should have been prepared on that one. Which obviously we've looked at the games. Hold on. Ooh. So Stevie, this was a little bit tasty to me. And what I'm doing, hear me out here. What I'm doing is I'm leaning in a little bit to last year's performance. Magic on the road, getting them as high as plus 114 on FanDuel. I like that. I think the Magic could pull out a win here. This is a tough team all season. You know, it's a season opener. Anything can happen. Give me the Magic at plus 114 to win this thing. And then in terms of the spread, Stevie, I've got one.
Just one. You can just one. Yeah, it's just one of your favorites of those three. Yeah, just one bet of those. So Milwaukee minus 3.5. That is where I'm going today. You could pay the juice if you wanted to just take Milwaukee to win this game. I don't mind giving the points up. I think Milwaukee wins this game by a good margin. So, I think this game is just Philly being at home and, obviously opening night at home. And I misjudged that a little bit with the Lakers and bet Minnesota, but I think Milwaukee, much better basketball team than Philadelphia with Embiid and George out. Favorite player prop or pick'em play that you got?
Well, I think we've kind of already taken it, and that's Alperen Sengun, more than 9.5 rebounds. Now I'm going to try to take a backup here, Stevie, and see if I'm going to something for Trae Young. I'm trying to get his assist prop because I'm trying to see, and it's at 10.5. Oh, I was hoping it was 9.5. But I'm going to stick with Sengun. I know we already played it, but over 9.5 rebounds. I think that's the play of the day. Yeah,
I like that as well. So mine is Scoot Henderson over 4.5 assists here. You get it at minus 115 on the Hard Rock. I don't know what it is on other books, but Scoot, I feel like, is someone that is going to benefit from having these guys around him. We saw him finish out the season last year with good assist numbers. I think he had at least 6 assists in his last 8 games last year. 4.5 seems too low. I know there were some injuries and stuff, but he is, he third pick last year? Like, we're just kind of overlooking Scoot Henderson. The books are anyway. I like Scoot Henderson over 4.5 assists is my bet today. No 3-pick parlay today. I'm going to wait to kind of see rotations and see how basketball kind of shapes up for the first week before I start betting 3-pick parlays. Will, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Negative, brother. I am good to go. We can head home.
Yep. Go watch the end of this Minnesota Lakers game. I hope everyone has a fantastic Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, we're back. Wednesday night with the NFL podcast with me and Noto. Appreciate everyone hanging out, and we'll see you again tomorrow.